All right, Dad, thanks so much for sitting down with me to discuss some of the issues. We're getting close to our election in a couple months from now. We're going to go over
2012.
2012. That's right. As we near the presidential and congressional elections, we're going to have just a brief conversation about some of the key issues that are facing our country in the coming years. And so, as we go over these issues, if you'll just briefly state your personal opinion and belief as to what our country should be doing in response to the topics at hand. All right, the first issue is the issue of immigration to our country.
Lots of thoughts. We've been a nation of immigrants, people coming here legally and illegally for as long as we've been a nation. I don't know when they first started using Ellis Island, but there certainly were people coming through the West Coast and through both countries to the north and the south without particular documents. The point of children being born here, gaining citizenship automatically, has been a time-honored tradition and codified in laws in this country as long as I can remember and before, hundreds of years. So I very much believe that people who have been brought here when they were very young, who have grown up here, who have pledged allegiance with me and with others, who have only known this country and their childhood and have been law-abiding, sought to work to get ahead, believe in the American dream of education and hard work would make it, and who have positively contributed, have every right to have a path towards citizenship as well, and even more so than those who have never been here, who have immigrated to come here formally. So I think there ought to be a DREAM Act and an opportunity for them to continue to contribute.
All right. Our next topic is the Second Amendment and the issue of gun control in our country.
Rights, civil rights, human rights. My rights end where I impede in your safety and your opportunities to be yourself and to develop your own advantages through your hard work. So I don't see why we should look at big clips, fast fire rifles, and other things as a right. The guise of using it for hunting is beyond me. I think, yes, you can have a weapon to protect yourself, but I see people getting armed far beyond protecting themselves. And so I don't think that is a right or needful. We came from a country that had militias that came up and sprang up and helped defend and gain our independence. I don't see people needing to come forward and gain our independence or take over the rights of law, who have been called and are being paid to provide that for me.
All right. Next is the issue of gay marriage in our country.
I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. I believe there ought to be rights given, respecting associations of people of the same sex that have invested in each other, not only their emotions, but financially and other resources. So I'm not in favor of gay marriage. This is civil marriage. I am in favor of civil partnerships that should be respected with benefits of health insurance, retirement, and other privileges.
Okay. Our next topic is the issue of legalization of currently illegal drugs such as marijuana.
I see that as a slippery slope. I've been involved with families as an employee with Child Protective Services of the state and see alcohol, marijuana, and other things going into other drugs as an escape and as a crutch and an addiction. So I'm concerned about addictions. I'm not for outlawing food. I'm not for outlawing alcohol again. I have struggles with seeing marijuana as a therapeutic, needful medical advantage. So I feel uneasy about that. I understand that by illegalizing it, we're creating an atmosphere, particularly when emotionally and socially and culturally it's become more accepted because in part more people have grown up using it. And they said it was good enough for me when I was a kid, others should have it too, but not for medical reasons.
All right. And our last topic in social issues is the issue of abortion.
I think that each lady owns her own body, and deserves the right to decide what happens to it. I believe, however, that abortion should not be used as an ongoing advantage for birth control. I believe that for rape, for incest, and for concerns facing the life of the mother, that abortion should be an option. That is a religious viewpoint. I think it has some cultural advantages. But ultimately, I think that's a personal decision that the woman should be making, instead of us enforcing that upon other people because of our own moral or religious values.
All right. Our next set of topics has to do with the current financial and economic conditions in our country. So if you'll just state briefly what you believe our government and our country should do regarding the following topics. We'll begin with the national debt, which currently is around $16 trillion.
I think we should stop kicking it forward for others to resolve. I think that we have become in part spoiled, and that our presidents, Congress, and others have led the public here to be spoiled. I think that having wars and lowering taxes at the time those were taking an increasing amount of our GNP was foolish, was unwise, and should have been declared and explained earlier. I do not believe in trickle-down economics. I don't believe giving more money to the wealthy will mean that they will turn around and invest it in this country and provide more jobs. Not when I see people as basically selfish, self-centered, which capitalism encourages. I don't believe in trickle-down economics. I see our CEOs in this country having a disparity and earning so much more than the people that they employ, more than any other country on this world. I see them sending their money to the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, and other places instead of investing it in this country. So I believe that the wealthy should be paying more for all the opportunities to become wealthy.
And that leads straight into our next topic, which is taxes in our current tax system. How do you believe it should be reformed or should be run?
I think if we have the right to live here and the right to make a profit and the right to become wealthy, with an education system open to all, hard work benefiting all, and so forth, that those who are wealthier should be paying more. They've had the opportunity to become wealthy. I believe that the disparity between taxes has long been overdue to realign. I believe that the loopholes have been placed there to benefit the wealthy, and that they've had an unfair influence on those who have been in Congress and in the presidential because of campaign financing to influence to their advantage.
All right. Our next issue is related to our current economic conditions. It's the issue of health care, specifically what's called Obamacare, or the idea of nationalized health care.
I do not believe that the majority of Western civilized countries were foolish and communistic in determining to have a national health system. I believe our country cannot tolerate incest, rape, nor child abuse. And because of that, we have put out standards to be enforced by law enforcement and social workers and child protective services, for example, so that we do not have to come home to see that occurring. I believe similarly that we do not want to see the persons down the street dying early because they did not have enough money to pay for medical care, and that those who are disadvantaged medically, but who could be emotionally or had other handicaps physically, that we have a responsibility to give them and their parents some provision for. I am in favor of taking away with the middleman who we pay far too much for, instead of the insurance companies becoming increasingly wealthy and making profits for stockholders and themselves, so that we have a nationalized health system.
All right. Next, the issue of environmental protection and regulations restricting, for example, businesses' pollution of the environment.
I am glad that we have an EPA that cleaned up the Great Lakes in this country, shared with Canada, who was some of the dirtiest and most unhealthy to be in, and that was back when the EPA was formed. I don't think that the public today is aware of how the EPA came into being. The toxic rain, which was occurring up in the Northeast because of the pollution that was going into the air and rain down into the lakes, has been well documented for years. I am glad that there is an EPA who looks out for the health and the cleanness of the air. As I go up to the Grand Canyon, as I swim in the streams here in Arizona, I don't want the kind of pollution that's happening far too fast. And so I'm glad there's standards on clean water, and that the beaches around here are protected, and we have EPA regulations on drilling and care that needs to be done, and foods, the FDA. I am so glad that it's here to keep my children and my friends and relatives from dying unnecessarily early.
All right, and finally, when it comes to economic issues, the largest, I guess you could say, drain on our national government's finances is Medicare and Medicaid. And so what do you think should be done when it comes to those two programs?
I think that the national health care system put in place will not replace them completely, but will go a long distance to make them more fair. I believe that there are some people who are getting a Cadillac health care and also are paying a very small part of their retirement towards their health care. I think that there can be some adjustments to Medicare, that those who are receiving in retirement and elsewhere a certain amount should not be given the advantages of free health care without an additional fee for that, which they can readily afford.
Okay. And our last category has to do with America's dealings with the rest of the world, foreign policy. We'll start with what you believe should be done when it comes to what's called the war on terror currently.
There have been, and will continue to be, in the history of this country and the world's involvement with this country, the attitude that we will go in and become involved where economically is in our self-interest, and then history written as if we were altruistic and intervening. I believe it's beyond our financial, political, and military power to be the policemen of the world, which after World War II we had this arrogant attitude that we could be, as the wealthiest nation with the biggest military left standing at the end of that war and at the end of the Korean War. So I believe that we should be more organized in working in an organization with other countries to help them in stopping the terrorism. And as those terrorists affect us, we should have no apology but working with other countries to help make them safer as well as ourselves by helping them develop a police force. There's too many new countries with the a spring that's just been happening that haven't developed the democracy and the development of their own military and police force to stop their own terrorist threats within their country, which spills over into a threat to our country.
Which leads straight to the next topic, which is the Arab Spring. What do you believe our country should be doing in nations such as Syria, where you're experiencing what appears to be a civil war?
We should continue to be involved with all countries and not jerk our finances and foreign aid. That foreign aid should not be going into military support for those countries, but into the education, the health, and the well-being, much as we are in Africa. We should be doing in other countries in the Near East and Mideast and Europe and Southern Europe. We should be helping these countries and recognize that our investments there will be to our good as a partnership and friendship for the future ahead. They are going to recognize that we are more a partner and share common values and common respect than a threat which the terrorists are filling them in. With the internet and the increased communications and awareness of each other, I think the terrorists will have less of an opportunity to sell their terrorism and rationale and defeating us. They then will have a happy life, and that we need to be actively and continually involved with them, not pull away.
All right, moving on to a specific Middle Eastern nation. The nation of Iran has caused some concern with its nuclear development. What do you believe our country's stance and position should be in dealing with Iran?
I really didn't talk about Syria much. I think we need to be involved in education. I think a no-fly zone deserves some consideration. I would hope that China and Russia go along with that with us, and recognize that Assad is not going to be there within a year's time. He will be gone. With respect to Iran, though everybody is saying that they are going to have bombs, we went into Iraq under the threat that our president sold us falsely, that they had a bomb and we're going to use it against it, which was found to be a total lie. I think we need to be careful to not jerk too fastly. I do believe that Obama was a bit naive, deserved the opportunity to look relations and counseling together with them instead of jumping in with more hard line. I do believe that we ought to, in coordination with other countries throughout the world, continue our efforts to financially isolate and be very hesitant to jump in by bombing the country and thereby inciting and justifying the terrorist lies about our country and why it does things.
All right. Sticking or connected to the issue of Iran is the idea of nuclear proliferation throughout the world. when it comes to nuclear weapons and America's possession or the nation's possession of such weapons, what do you believe we should be doing as a nation?
Well, we didn't go in and threaten to bomb Pakistan or India when they got the atomic bomb in power. No one stopped about that. Why not? I think nuclear proliferation we need to keep from happening, particularly in countries where they do not have a democratic history and the use of dialogue to prevent it being used by terrorists. Yes, I believe that we should, in close coordination with others, realizing that others could work against us and encourage the acquiescence of nuclear bombs, work very closely to isolate and prevent, and in coordination with others, as not the sole policeman for this world, prevent countries from expanding and gaining atomic bombs.
All right, and our final topic is perhaps the most significant trade partner and other power besides the United States in the world. It's the nation of China. What do you believe American policy should be when it comes to dealing with the communist nation of China?
I think we need to be firm on our, with respect to their copying, duplicating, and taking advantage of the development of high technology resources, which we have, and they're using that. I think we need to pull that back and be very upfront with them. They have undervalued their currency. They have robbed and taken advantage of technology developed elsewhere, stolen it, pirated it. That needs to be dealt with strongly. However, at the same time, we need to recognize that their people over there are still developing a democracy, that their people want to become wealthy. They share our desires of hard work and good education, and that's happening increasingly. I believe there will be some major developments politically and culturally over there in that country, which will prevent them from becoming a replacement for us militarily throughout this world. And they aren't putting their GNP into doing that, though their military is expanding. I think we need to develop closer relationships with them, more dialogue, more interchange of people, exchange students, exchange ideas. I think that will tear down the lies and justifications for arrogance and domination, which many people there still bring from their Cold War attitude.
All right, Dad, thank you so much for helping with this interview. Appreciate it a lot.